Welcome to another episode of Fabric Executive Insights. I'm your host, Swetha Mannepalli. I'm joined here by Andrew from Syracuse University.
Tony Judici.
We have Tony from
Q-Cells.
Handwork yourself.
Yes.
So, what we're going to talk about today is how real time intelligence is not really particular to a specific industry. So, that's why you see two different industries coming together on this panel to talk about how they are adopting real time intelligence in Microsoft Fabric across their organizations, both in the education industry as well as a lot of solar power, sustainability. So, we will cover both the use cases as part of this session. Now, with that, before we get into the details, can we level set on who you are, what you do, what your organization does, a little bit for our audience to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Andrew Jonkis, thanks for having me. At Syracuse University, we're a university in upstate New York. We have about 22,000 undergraduates at that university. We have about 30,000 individuals coming and going every day. My job at the university is AVP of Data and AI. So essentially, my goal at the university is to take data sets of combined AI and produce outcomes.
Wonderful, wonderful. How about you, Tony?
So I'm Tony Judici, Chief Architect at Q-Cells. Q-Cells is a California-based company, energy solutions with deep roots in solar. We serve 4 different pillars. We serve solar, we serve residential solutions, we serve energy, utility scale energy solutions, and commercial and industrial solutions.
Wonderful. So let's start with your journey with Fabric a little bit, Andrew, and then we will go with the same question for you, Tony. How did you realize what are the particular use cases that you figured out? Okay, now is our organic next step for us to start leveraging not only Fabric, but particularly the capability or, as a RTI as a capability for our data needs.
Yeah, so I'd have to build a little context. So those people that are coming and going every day to our campus, that demographic is shifting. Our market is shifting. So the number of students that are 18-year-old over the next 5 years is called the plateau. So we're going to drop off by almost 10% in the country because there are just less individuals of 18 years old over the next 5 years than there ever have been before. And so our market is shrinking. Also, we're dealing with another situation, which is the students these days that are coming to our university are of a particular type. Now, you might say that type is influenced by social media and has changed the way they do things. And I wouldn't discount that. But the other big thing is they're of the COVID generation, which means that they look at things differently. They experience the whole methodology of learning and grouping that occurred during a time in which they were developing and forming their social skills in high school. As that translates to them coming to college this year, what you find immediately is that these students don't gather the same ways, don't value the same things. It very much is a population that has shifted from what we had just a year before because that was such a traumatic event. So for us at the university, we had a lot of leadership going, oh boy, we have a changing market. How do we measure that market? How do we make sure that we provide our customers, the students, the very most hyper-personalized teaching and learning experiences that we can? And the answer to that is to start measuring. And so you might say, well, how do you start measuring? And I said the same thing, and I said at this conference last year, and I said, well, RTI seems like something we might need.
Who knew or who would have thought or imagined education industry really requires RTA? So this is a really classic use case on how RTA can be across organizations, across industries. Now, would love to know how Handwork Q-Cells is leveraging RTI for your data needs.
Sure. So it's a relatively straightforward scenario. I mean, we're collecting telemetry off of data centers and battery devices and solar panels and all of these different time series data that come in. And so what we're trying to do is help solve the data center energy problem that you see on TV, right? We want to help optimize the data, but in order to do so, we need to capture telemetry coming both off the energy systems that we can, as well as the data center equipment itself. And so all that telemetry off that data comes into real-time intelligence, and it is actually stored in a medallion layered architecture where we can then put an ontology on top of it put it in a knowledge graph, and then have AI agents reason over that data to come up with plans to help uh, optimize the consumption as well as the supply of energy based on various environmental factors, rates and tariffs, um, weather, load patterns that heavily change with AI workloads. So that time series data capability is very, very important.
Wonderful. So I want to move on to understanding a little more about it. Let's drill down on the education use case that you just mentioned, Andrew. So you have, at a Syracuse University, you operate across academics, marketing, finance, budgeting, all of those good things, and everything move at a different
Oh, yes.
pace altogether. Now, when data gets pushed from Syracuse, how did you rethink about your data strategy?
All right. So the first thing you need to understand about an education institution is it's a mini city. We have all the things that a city would have. We have ambulance. We
Oh,
have a stadium, world class JMA wireless dome. We have athletic facilities for training and for health. We have healthcare facilities. Oh, by the way, we also do education. And right, and so
right.
we have all of these particular areas that we have to cover in terms of investment.
Mhm.
How do we make sure that they're best aligned to our customer? And by the way, that shifts throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year.
Oh, wow.
There's a big shift that occurs about, oh, I don't know, about the holiday time in the US and in the summertime in the US, which changes the entire environment completely. And so these are like patterns that you can really say, oh, it's always going to be like this, especially when you get a changing population. So as we looked to across what do we want to do and how do we want to absorb these leadership questions that are coming at us, which are really distinct questions. Do we know if our cafeterias are delivering the right food to the right people at the right time? Do we think our buses, yeah, you would think a bus, what? Do we think our buses are actually making people come to class more often? Because guess what? This population, I said, are remote learners.
Yeah.
And so we want them in person and present.
And be welcomed.
Exactly, and to feel like it's for them. So any of the micro friction points that you and I may just go, oh, that's living. For them, it's annoying. And so we're taking a bunch of these ideas from leaders and saying, well, this is a question from leadership. How does IT back that decision with real-time data? Because as I said, the nuances matter. Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Fridays aren't very popular for classes. And so peaks and valleys throughout the week at a university are really big things. And so that naturally lends itself to real-time monitoring of things like buses, or we call them trolleys, and other aspects of campus. We have the largest 5G wireless network in the country at Syracuse University. That means we get about 15,000 individuals coming and going off our network. If you have a Verizon AT&T device, T-Mobile, you come on to our campus, you're on our network. You also get 5 bars, so you'll be happy. But those are all little specks of data, wireless, all these things that show a really big picture. Depending on the question and the fidelity, you might be able to answer today.
Wonderful. So what I loved about what all the things that you just mentioned, Andrew, is you're really looking at the sensitivities of individuals and also respecting where they come from, creating an inclusive environment for everything. And no, we are happy that Microsoft Fabric is playing a role in what you're doing at Syracuse. Let's talk about a little drill down about what you're doing at Hanwha Q Cells. Now, I want to understand energy is obviously mission critical. So that's top of mind for all of us. Sustainability is something that we really want to think about when we are introducing products or introducing new things in this era. But stepping back, what parts of RTI approach do you think translated to any organization managing complex variables like you just mentioned?
You can get flooded in the amount of data that comes in.
Oh, 100%.
The important thing is to have a plan for it, and the means of developing that plan is working through an ontology. And so if you have an ontology, you can grab all the data that comes back, run it through real-time insights, and the data you don't need drops off when you get to the ontology point. It's a large part of it is understanding what you need, and a large part is also understanding what you don't need. And so understanding what are the important key factors to look at is a big factor, especially as you go from a a medallion architecture. By the time you get to that layered view, you hopefully have crystallized exactly what things are important. For example, we've mapped out the data center. We collect a knowledge graph of all the devices in the data center. Then we have the telemetry so that both the human and AI see the same view of what's happening in their data center. So when you look at a graphical implementation, you can click into a particular device and see the context of it. When the AI is reasoning over it to make improvements, it's looking at the same set of data. So
Wonderful.
it's about it's about clarity, and that's what the ontology brings.
Wonderful. So I would love to understand because you already talked about agents and IQ. Let's take a step back and kind of ground ourselves on what Fabric IQ future are you anticipating to see at Syracuse University, and would love for you to talk about Fabric IQ and what is next for you in terms of your implementation, not just stopping with RTA, but also bringing in Fabric IQ.
Right.
Maybe we'll start with you, Tony.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've already got a Fabric ontology created and running in Azure. We're actually looking at open sourcing our data source model. So we've actually got a repo out there. It was presented in the last session I just did with Chafia, and I've also posted it on my LinkedIn blog. So anybody that wants to go look at our ontology and see if they can use it for their data center, we're looking to create open standards. It was built on top of standards that already existed. So we're not inventing anything new. We're just building on top of what others have done. And so once we've got that ontology in place, there are infinite things. Today I was just thinking about, how can we incorporate Foundry IQ to use Fabric IQ
Oh, great.
as,
Brilliant.
as the base for that, and now that they've announced MCP servers, we can actually embed Foundry IQ in everything and just query that ontology directly. So there are a lot of great uses we can have going forward.
Perfect. So what do you think where you're headed with Fabric IQ?
So I would say, first of all, a little more context, time to outcome, right? So one thing that we've noticed with Fabric is that as we proceed into this era, we only have months often to align with our next student population, right?
That is right.
So time to outcome, leadership asks a question. It doesn't matter if you give the right answer a year late, right? And so as we look at time to outcome with Fabric, the things we're doing, the things I'm talking about, we instrumented buses, trolleys, bus stops. We did that with Fabric, but why Fabric? Well, because we could take an MQTT message, send it to Event Hub, Event Stream, right? Event House, and get answers in real time and make data agents all in the same platform. So where am I really excited about? And you kind of leaned into it.
Yeah.
Ontologies are going to be a very special thing for organizations. Right now, we live mostly in a semantic style layer, data entity relationships, data definitions, things of that sort. I think ontologies are really going to make this powerful. And there'll be a day where I won't have to be involved in those leadership conversations. It'll just be instrumented. The data will be flowing in, and people will freeform ask question leadership. Like, well, what if we didn't put an extension on this building for X number of millions of dollars? And by the way, we did do that.
Amazing.
And the answer was we didn't need it.
That's amazing. So gone are the days where you're trying to, maybe that's the future that we are headed to. You're no longer trying to unify your data estate. You're actually thinking ahead on how do you answer some of those critical
Correct.
questions.
Outcomes.
The outcomes, yes. Forecasting, wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate sharing Handwork QSL's story. If anybody wants to learn more about Handwork QSLs, we have a published story that is on customers.microsoft.com. Please take a deeper look at what they have done with Microsoft Fabric and the adoption. We would love to, we're already pursuing a customer story with Syracuse. It's going to be out on the same website pretty soon. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
What a conversation. Everything you've been watching here was captured live at FabCon and SequelCon in Atlanta, from the interviews to the demos to the community insights that make these events so special. If you're into Microsoft Fabric, SQL, and the future of data, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And speaking of next, we're taking this show to Barcelona. FabCon and SequelCon Barcelona are happening this September 2026, and it's going to be packed with big announcements, deep technical sessions, and one amazing global data community. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to register and use code FABTV to save 200 euros off your ticket. As always, thank you so much for watching. Keep being awesome, and we'll see you in the next one.